Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I'm your host, Florence Adu, coming to you from a balmy, it didn't rain today though, a balmy Accra evening. And as I was catching up with my guest today, we were talking about how we've known each other known of each other for so many years. We met years and years ago, different careers, still as we're coming together as Black women in real estate. And this is part of our Borderless Building series with Black women in real estate. So we're excited to dive into the conversation and catch up. So I'll get to her bio and we'll take it from there. She is an award-winning real estate developer and urban revitalization strategy consultant. She's a MacArthur Genius Fellow, a Peabody Award-winning broadcaster, and currently teaches at Princeton University. She's also a community enterprise innovator as the founder of Sustainable South Bronx and Green for All. And in 2017, she opened Boogie Down Grind, a hip-hop themed coffee and craft beer spot, the first commercial third space in Hunts Point since the mid-1980s. And so we'll find out where Hunts Point is if you all don't know where that is geographically. Her 2022 book, Reclaiming Your Community, You Don't Have to Move Out of Your Neighborhood to Live in a Better One, argues that communities thrive when they retain talent and invest rather than losing both to brain drain. A line from the book is now quoted on the walls of the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. Majora Carter, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Florence. It's so nice realizing that it's that Florence Adu that I met so many years ago. It could be any Florence Adu. There's so many out there. But Oh my God, what a joy. Yeah. What a joy to see you. I'm very excited.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get started. We always start with where are you from? Where are you local? And what is your craft?
I am in my home. I was born and raised here in the Hunts Point section of the South Bronx in New York City. And I'm local to this place. I'm literally in the place at the home I own right now, which is 2 blocks away from the house I was born and raised in on Moneta Street here in Hunts Point. And my craft is working to build communities that people feel they don't have to move out of their neighborhood in order to experience a better one.
Of course. And you've written about it. It's awesome. So let's go back, because when we met, you were fresh out of one of the reasons why I know you is the inspiration and the facilitator of this podcast, Garnett Harriman. So I believe you were Choral Fellows together way back when. So back in those days when I was running a tech program, like just really getting my CIs in real estate in New York, we came across each other. So how did real estate become your story?
Yeah, I got to back it up a little bit because it was not a very linear path at all. I was actually much more of a creative person. My dream was become a filmmaker and got into graduate school at NYU, which is still one of the best filmmaking, school degree institutions in the country. And this was back in the day when you actually used 16 millimeter film, not just video. So it was horribly expensive. And so I couldn't continue. I just literally actually didn't even start, but I ended up getting an MFA program in creative writing. And my dream was to literally write the great American novel, turn it into the great American screenplay, and then direct and produce the film that play a very small but pivotal role in it. And then win my first Oscar. That was literally my plan. And it still might be.
Okay.
But all that to say is that I had to, since I was broke and needed a cheap place to stay during all this time, I had to move back to the neighborhood that I fought really hard to leave. I grew up during the burning Bronx. It was like literally kind of manifestation of all the urban blight, but also just the history of historic redlining and financial disinvestment that happened in poor communities of color. And my neighborhood was no different. So I didn't want to be here and use education to get out and had to come back home to my parents' house, again, 2 blocks away from here. And it was then that I discovered that our community I felt under attack by our city and state government, who were absolutely continuing to create more insults and injury for our community by having way more waste facilities located here. And when I realized that this has been happening for years, because again, I was looking outside of the neighborhood. I was definitely part of the brain drain in my own neighborhood and was fine with it because I didn't see any hope for the future here anyway. And then I realized, oh my gosh, that so the education and the distance that I had really did make me go, this is actually happening because we happen to be a poor community of color and thus politically vulnerable. And we're also in need of new plans and designs for our community. So I actually got very involved, not only in the solid waste advocacy that was less discriminatory against poor people of color in the city, but primarily I did environmental justice solutions. So my goal, I mean, I think it did come from the fact that I was an artist and was all about what do you give people to see? And because that movement of watching change and seeing it happen, and it can inspire people to think all sorts of different things about their community. And we didn't have much to think about it, except that our neighborhood was considered like the laughing stock of our nation. And it was just a place that all you wanted to do was grow up and get out of. And I was like, we can do better than that. And so I did many of my projects, actually were national award winners, transformed a dump into a park, brought in about $50 million worth of greenway infrastructure, money to actually help create the South Bronx Greenway, which is still in construction right now. And then later on, I actually moved into tech inclusion, started really fantastic tech inclusion program, which was a small tech social enterprise that got people really involved, like dealt with this digital pipeline in a way that nobody's done before or since, which is kind of annoying because it was a great idea. And then seeing those type of things really gave me an opportunity to get to know my community in ways I hadn't before. And then also really think about what is the trajectory of our community if we create the kind of projects that make it feel like we are worthy of the local economic development and just the kind of like feeling that people get when they are living in a great place. Like they feel like there's something to look forward to. And moving into real estate development was honestly like the next. I'm surprised I didn't end up here earlier than I did, in part because everything's about real estate. Everything. And it will determine how people, either feel like they can invest emotionally, economically, educationally, all of those things. And it also determines the kinds of goods and services, just practically, goods and services they get, and also I wanted to be in a position where I was actually helping people in my own local community and communities like it around the country experience the kind of economic development that fed them and not just the sort of typical way that communities are gentrified but not for the people that are born and raised in them, and actually creating the kind of protections and support so that we can afford to progress as our community progresses as well.
So I'm thinking about how then you, over all of this time, have understood the different levels of impact, because that's what's next, right? So you decide that real estate is where you want to be, you create these programs, but real estate is a long-term investment, right? And I think that a lot of what people understand is, oh, we're going to get in and flip, we're going to do this, that, the other. Those who understand wealth are invested in the long term, right? They understand that there's a generational aspect to this. And so in the work that you do and how you then, because one of the things I remember as working in economic development, I was fortunate because I worked on a tech program and I saw impact. However, we know that these things take much longer. And so in your work and as you think about it, how do you gauge and ensure communication around and keep people rallied around projects that might take longer, and then figure out how to communicate that impact along the project timeline?
Right. I mean, yes. And it's so funny because, people are just people. and I think especially, in communities like this where they've been often just, maybe sold a bill of goods or, promised all sorts of stuff. Like it's just really interesting, to sort of know coming from that situation, because I'm from here and heard all of it myself, just knowing full well that one of the things you can do the most is like share a vision, get people excited about a vision, but also giving them victories to celebrate along the way. And I'm really good at that over the course of my career, because, but also trying to remind people like, you know what? It did not take a week to get to where we are right now. It is realistically, it's going to take a little bit longer. So I think managing expectations has been also something that I've done well, but but believe me, there'll be people who are just sort of like, now, this is not happening now, then you can't do it ever. Then and it's more of like a scourge upon, me, as opposed to like, no, this is what the process is. Most people appreciate understanding what that is. And oftentimes I'm the bearer of this. This is actually how things work. And it also doesn't help, the fact that we are, just because of all the systemic bias that happens, that as frankly, as a woman of color developer, a Black woman in particular, quite frankly, it is even harder for me. And so, and that's news that some people are kind of like, really? That actually happens. Like, yeah, welcome to America. And again, to many people, it's actually the thing that encourages them even more. It's like, here's somebody who's trying this hard to make this happen. And then for others, it's just like, well, maybe we should depend on a white man. Be blunt about it.
That is fact on facts globally.
Yeah.
So much of, when I was preparing, I was listening to your TED Talks. I'm like, this is the global diaspora story, right? This is who we are everywhere. And so I'm curious so I want to ask you about my why the where question. I'm going to frame it a little bit differently. So I ask, how did you come to be living, working, and playing where you currently are? Well, we know why and how and in that piece. But I want to ask you, as you started to expand your practice and consult, so why the where of your first project outside of New York City? What was that about?
Oh, dear. Oof.
Actually, your favorite? Your first or your favorite?
My first or my favorite? Gosh, they were all both. That's a good, yeah. Now I wish I'd thought about this one before. And it's funny because I would have to say that my favorite ones were actually, sadly, the ones that actually never got built. But I still believe in the value of them, and sooner or later, they will happen. One of my favorites was actually U.S. Green Building Council retained me in my company to actually go travel in various communities around the country, specifically because they were trying to just ensure that there were, folks in, the sort of like outside of the very white green building world, that people would see some value in what they did. And I was like, okay. And I was like, listen, because I've always been preaching to them. It's like, people do sustainability, that are of color in low status communities in general, but it may look a little bit different, but we're out there. And now it's up to you to make sure that they see value in your work. But they were just like open. And so they basically retained me to travel around. And one of my favorite moments was actually going to visit Winona LaDuke, who, is like probably one of the more famous Native American names, period. She ran for, vice president along with Ralph Nader back in the day. She's been a huge, climate, activist as well. And so I went to visit her, did some talks. But one of the things that I thought was really fascinating was at one point they were talking about what can we do on the reservations, because we went to like the Ojibwe reservations up in way northern Minnesota. And one of the things that as we were like trying to connect and work out what could happen was that they discovered that so it's called the White Earth Reservation, right? And why was it called White Earth? Because much of the sort of like clay in the mountains up there, or hills, and weren't quite mountains, actually was this very particular type of clay-like material that actually had an R factor that made it a great insulator. And so the plan was, how do you turn this into a green building material? Like actually like mass produce it, because there was plenty, of White Earth and White Earth Reservation. And so I was involved early in those discussions about how we make that happen. And it was just a super exciting place to be, where folks are thinking, here's a res where basically people most of the Native Americans or the Ojibwe Nation in particular, most of them lived in the Twin Cities. So they're not, so they are literally the people who are moving out of their neighborhood to experience something better because there were, major opportunities there. So thinking about that and just sort of like watching like light bulbs go over people's heads and like think about how do you strategize or something like that was actually some of the most wonderful moments of my careers as we worked in that. But yeah, and I'm not sure what happened with it, but sometimes things take a long time. But it was to unearth that, along with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we can all appreciate that some of the best parts of this work is working with stakeholders because
Yeah.
you get to understand what grassroots is all about. And so I find that extremely powerful. And so I want to ask you a little bit more about your roots to some extent because I'm reading this or listening to a podcast. It's Malcolm Gladwell, and it's about Reconstruction, the Unfinished Promise. And it's an Obama project. Barack Obama's on it. And a lot of that conversation kind of deals with capitalism. And I know that that's something that you've mentioned you're a capitalist, and that's something that makes sense. So I want to understand when you understood that that was a necessary part of who you needed to be, in addition to the socialist in you and the libertarian in you and all those things. But where does capitalism sit? Because I have some idea, so I want to understand.
I mean, I'm like, there have been brilliant people, way more brilliant than I will could ever hope to be. And I'm okay with that. Who've tried to dismantle it and whatever. But in the meantime, I've also been inspired by those who've used it in a way to support our communities, like the Black Wall Streets that all over this country that most people know nothing about. Capitalism was a tool, was the foundation as it was every other place outside, right? Of it. And through it, they built these incredible, almost like mythical communities, but they were real. And they were this like beautiful, these local living economies that kept, bringing back hope and inspiration, to the people that live there. So I'm like, them's are tools. There's a lot of tools that we could deploy in our communities. And granted, yeah, I know that there's still, white supremacy is real and we're still dealing with the impacts of it and probably will, until kingdom comes. But in the meantime, how do we figure out how to use some of those tools in ways that actually do allow our communities to profit the way other white communities have done over these years? That's really all I'm trying to do. It's just like, I'm not trying, create all new tools. I mean, yes, I can be totally down, with this idea that there do need to be, I mean, in some places have done pretty well with like, national health care. People can call it socialism. I don't care what you call it. It's like, I think most of us would be really happy with it or having something that's better than what we have now anyway. But I feel like for me, it's just like there are tools that exist that have been denied to us by force, by regulation, la la la. And I just want to be real about that. And I'm just like, I don't think we're any different, than the white folks, who have, depending on where we are in the States, 10 times more wealth than like an average Black person or another person of color. So I think that's real. And I'm just like, how do we, ensure prosperity or even just like get closer to it? And I think the tools are there. We have examples. We know we do. So let's not pretend that we got to do something different because I feel like that hasn't been working for us either.
So I agree with you there. And where I am now, because I'm in this Pan-African space and understanding that colonialism and that correlation with capitalism
Yes.
has been destructive globally.
Yes.
And so where the Pan-Africanist movement was starting to make progress was really going back to the idea of these roots and this, what is communism, right? It's like communism outside of the politicized communism that created, the destruction of the progress of Kwame Nkrumah and Patrice Lumumba, like that idea. And so I wonder what you think is a word that we can claim that says the same thing, but it's ours as the Black diaspora. Because I feel like when we say capitalism, we are playing their game to an extent. and continue to perpetuate those systems that they've created that are anti-democratic and this, that, and the other.
I love reclamation, in part, like I love
Mm.
the actual,
Mm.
like the original roots of the word, Old English and French. Like it's actually almost started as a falconry term, which is, those people do that stuff with falcons. And it literally was this idea that that the falcon would return to you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that the roots of the word is just like, it was always yours, always. So I'm like, it's true.
Yeah.
It's, and you're not wrong. Like the dignity of living, working, playing in a place that fulfills you in every way, spiritually, socially, of course, economically, and having the opportunity to do so. That's real. And I don't think that's something that we should be afraid of saying. And I feel like that's the problem. Like sometimes, and when I get, attacked, from mostly from the left and progressive, folks, quite frankly, it's just like, you talk a lot about money. Yeah. Yeah. And
It's
one might as well.
important.
But that's the crazy thing. It's almost as if, you're doing community work. It's God's work. I'm like, God said I was fearfully and wonderfully made, as all of us were. I think God really is all excited about us living a wonderful life. Why would we want less than for any of our communities? I don't get that. I truly don't understand that. And I think that's sort of like one of the great learnings, of white supremacy is that our communities don't really deserve that much. And I think on some level, many of us have internalized that to the point where they will attack, those who are trying to do something a little different. Like, no, I'm not trying to like build just affordable, very low income affordable housing because I think that's all we're ever going to need. I don't
Right.
know.
Right. You're building a place of staying.
I want to see home ownership and lots more of it. Because we do know, yes, I know it's part of the capitalist system, but as is ownership in general. But I'm like, you know what? We would be in a lot less difficult situations if we own more stuff, straight
Mhm.
up. So how about we start there? Or maybe not saying this like that's all there is, but one thing we could do, and why not? Let's try it.
Why not?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm wrong, so then okay, I'm wrong,
Right.
but I
All
don't
right.
think so.
Yeah,
Um,
and you're in the trenches, so you do get that sense. And so speaking of, building things, we're curious about how you are in business as an entrepreneur, right? So you have your big strategy stuff, but then you are actually running a business on a daily, which is not easy. And so tell us about the story of founding a cafe, the Boogie Down Grind. So coffee and craft beer. Tell us about the story of the Boogie Down Grind. How did you come up with the name? How did you figure out the location? What was the story?
I mean, there for the grace of God go I. Like honestly, if I had any sense, um, I would have just probably not done it, to tell you the truth. I'm
Yeah.
absolutely from the Ready Fire Aim School of Development. Like when we understood that we really needed to develop this talent retention community development strategy. Like building the same things that make people feel like their communities are worth being in there. It became very clear through all of our own market research, that developing things like cafes, coffee shops, and bars, those are things that we knew people were leaving our community to experience. And so our initial impulse was to figure out ways to attract those things here because we just knew that was part of what we needed, or at least a good piece of what we needed, that physical manifestation of something that people aspire to and that they're going to leave in order to connect with it. Okay. People like feeling cool like that, right? And so we used our relationships with some of the property owners in the community and got very cheap leases because frankly they liked us. And so we got these, I mean, stupidly cheap. Like I wish I'd set an even cheaper price because we probably would have gotten it. So we got 2 leases for $1,500. Two
Oh,
totally.
wow.
Yeah, I know, right?
Wow.
Stupid.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, why didn't I go lower? But anywho, because I thought that was an impossibly low thing that I'd have to like negotiate up. Didn't they said yes too quick. And so all that to say, one of the spaces was one we were planning on building our tech social enterprise in. And the other one, like, we need a cafe because we don't have one. We haven't had one in the neighborhood since I was in going to high school in the early 80s. We've not had any of those social spaces, like we'd had any third spaces. So people literally were just like, this is not the place to be. And so we actually put the word out for someone to help us or to rent this space out to, like someone who wanted to open up a cafe in the neighborhood, and we could pass on the savings for rent, blah, blah, blah. Nobody came forward. And those that did, we realized that it would not be a good plan for them to try to, just too much. And then Starbucks said no. They were not interested in coming to a neighborhood like this. And then we realized, we are going to have to do this. And again, I'm from the Ready, Fire, Aim School of Development. So I was like, how hard could it be? And fortunately, we partnered with this amazing coffee shop called Birch Coffee. And they've got like 10 different stores around in New York City. And actually, now they've moved to Seoul, Korea as well. They're big coffee drinkers. It's crazy. Like, you think we're bad, but they're incredible. So we did a joint venture with them, taught us everything we could possibly know about coffee. And then it became clear that that was not they were like that great third wave coffee. There were no flavors. It's just about steaming the milk and pulling the perfect shot. Yeah, so it was like flavors, frappes. Nah, we don't do any of that kind of stuff. And it just became clear that we would not survive if that's all we did up here. And because we needed things like flavors and whipped cream and blah, blah, blah. And then we just realized, but they were great to work with and still supported us when we decided to uncouple. And we got this, and then so we leaned into our culture. This is the South Bronx. This is the birth.
Yeah.
And so we were like, how about we do that? And so Boogie Down is another name for the South Bronx. And so then we plastered our walls with like, seminal albums of hip hop, especially the early days when it first came out. And our baristas or our DJs in their own right. It's really cool. And we like, have themed names for, our drinks, Big Pun Eenie, things like that. Grandmaster Frappuccino.
I love it.
Have fun. We totally do. But really, the space in and of itself is we have this seating area that actually turns into a stage. And so we do things like they're open, and we don't do any of it, but folks in the community literally do like develop the programming for the space. So there's open mics, there's comedy nights, there's art openings, there's, various types of, there's a philosophy workshop, there are book clubs, all the time. Stuff like that happens there, all in like a 900 square foot space. But it's and also, yeah, people just come and get coffee and camp out and work from there or whatever as well. But it's really is the only space like it, in the community. But yes, I wish that there had been somebody else who had done it. And I'm super excited that we got a chance to make it happen. But ultimately, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to kind of pass it on to somebody who's a little younger than my husband and I are. And I want to be a part of this and more definitely. But ideally, we think the model of the Boogie Down grind itself, because now that as an export, hip hop is just something that's worldwide. And frankly, there isn't a place in this world where the local folks have not taken hip hop and literally turned it into something that is more uniquely theirs. And so we think it's such a great opportunity, kind of like the same way that Hard Rock Cafe what it will allow. I don't think it does it that well, to be honest. Because like somebody's replica, of a guitar, and that's it. Whereas like, nah, for us, it really is the way it's programmed, the way it looks, and really like, what does hip hop mean, to the community that it's in?
Yeah,
and
that's Brilliant. Yeah.
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 So hopefully, we'll be able to pitch that, as a franchise opportunity soon, because we think that it would also be amazing, for local folks to like buy into, a fairly low, price franchise and do it, because we've got a great formula. It really works. But I wish that we had more foot traffic, in this community than we do right now. 'Cause if I thought about it, I definitely would have done this in a different community. But I was just thinking, we need to see this here, right? And that's where, it's good. As a research and development lab.
Yes, 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 yes. And so I mean, what's great about it, like you said, it's a lab. Experimentation is so
Yes.
key, right? It's so important, and particularly when we're trying to solve these big problems. And
Mhm.
so I want to ask you one question is about Glocal Speak. And then I want to ask you about your book because speaking is writing. And so we like to hear what you hear. So if you could share a word, a phrase, or a saying that's a meaningful part of your local experience, and how or why you come to value it as Glocal Speak, we are all ears.
A phrase that's a part of our local
Yes.
experience.
So, for example, here in Ghana, people say chale a lot, or that's what's up, or that kind of thing, or a specific word. Some people talk about like industry words like
Mhm.
resilience, things like that. So, what would be your local speak?
Still so funny to me, even though, because we still hear it a lot, is we outside.
Oh, I love it. And it's summer. It's
And
time.
I
Yeah.
think it mostly started like during the pandemic, when we were finally able to be outside like with each other. But I love it because it speaks to, the thing that has always driven me, that there is an innate need for human connection and community.
Mm,
And it's
mhm,
we outside. It's
mhm.
not I'm outside, it's we
Yes, we
outside.
outside.
It's
Mhm.
like together.
Yes.
And that, but you need great places, and people only talk about it if it's a great place. And I'm like, we need more of that, and building community so that no matter where you are in it, we outside, and as in with somebody else. So I think that's one of the things that's what literally popped into my mind as you asked the question. Yeah.
That is so local. I love it. So now you're outside, and I'm sure you started working on the book before the pandemic or during the pandemic. It was after.
Well, literally, it was a very funny story, because I'd been approached by the publisher a good 7 years before, when I was out, and they're based in the Bay Area, and lovely people, invited me out when I was out there, and they were just like, "We love your work. We know you've got several books in you, and whenever you're ready." And the editor, Steve Prasante, lovely man, and he would ping me like every several months just to be like, "Hey, Majora, just checking in." This went on for 7 years. I kid you not. And then some other publisher contacted me at the beginning of the pandemic and was just like, "Hey, we know your work, think you're great. Could you send us a proposal?" And I was like, I got nothing else to do. We lost like 90% of our business. And sitting like, I need to do something. So I wrote a little proposal. I don't even remember what it was, but all I know is I got back from them. They were like, this actually isn't our cup of tea, but we know this other publisher called Barrett Kohler. They're based in the Bay Area. Would you be interested? Can we connect you with them? And I was like, already connected with them. And literally within, I swear, like 15 minutes, after realizing, like, wait a second, this is duh. My future editor, Steve Frasante, and I had already discussed like the 18-month period for me to write my book. Literally, it was like that. Yes, but yeah, and it took that long. So yeah, but I wrote it over a 4-month period, the actual first draft over 4 months. Then it went through like a bunch of different readers. And then there's a whole other process. Oh my God. But yeah, the whole thing took 18 months to actually get from proposal to draft to readers to artwork, blah, 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 and all that stuff, and to get it out there.
Right, 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 right. And so when you think about the book, do you place it in a space of academics or the casual reader? So coming from an economic development perspective, I get it. And I would read this and I understand it. But then when you think about it, when you were writing the book and thinking about positioning, where now do you see it living, thriving across?
It's a good question. I saw it both, as a well, actually, as an academic book, because I thought this process was something that, frankly, urban planning students, local economic, development students all needed to understand if you're talking about any kind of development. So that goal was lofty, but I wasn't trying to do it I had zero interest in doing it as a book that everybody literally couldn't read. Like I've had high school students just be like, "Oh my God, like this is exactly what I was trying to articulate in my head and why I wanted to like run away, why I felt like I needed to run away." Stuff like that, or just like people to talk about at family reunions. Like, we're going to take it to my family reunion this year, and hopefully some of them will pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so for me, it was just because I wanted it to be very accessible, but actually rooted. And so, like, I wasn't trying to write a memoir. No, not at all. Though some of it is definitely the history that, I brought to the table, but it's not meant to be a memoir. It's meant to be a learning experience, for anybody reading that book.
So how did your words get on the wall at the museum?
Girl, I have no idea. I swear nobody asked. Nope, literally nobody asked.
Really?
No idea. I'm still trying to figure it out. But all I know is that there was, I was at it was actually on the street. It was like some museum in New York City was doing some event. And I'm embarrassed. I even forgot the name of it. It's the new museum, and met this beautiful young Black woman who like ran up to me. Like we were going in different directions. And she's just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait." And she just mentioned that she can't wait for me to come to the museum. And at that point, I didn't even know that it was. And then I couldn't find her information after that. So maybe she's watching this and I'll be like, "That was me you talked to at the new museum, like festival, God knows when, a long time ago, just when the museum opened." But no, I have no idea. And I've not been able to get a hold of anybody to know, but so to see it the first time was
not even your publisher.
No, I don't think they tried at this point. That's a good question. Maybe I should have asked them to see if they could figure it out. But already it was up for many years at that point. Already there. And the first time I saw it was like one of my friends happened to go to, the first year it was open, and literally tweets out this thing that's my name. And I was like, whoa. Like, that's how I found out about it. I was like, I was like, and that's, yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Super fun.
Yeah. Well, you are memorialized in
the
American canon. That's awesome.
I know. It's beautiful. I cannot even tell you like when I went to see it the first time, which was just last summer.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was great.
Awesome. So let's talk about what's new and next for you. Yeah.
So I, interestingly enough, acquired a property that literally is the reason why I was even born. My father was a Pullman porter. And so his main line was the New York, New Haven line. And this was around the time he was a porter from like sometimes in the 30s up until the 50s. And this is when rich white men owned the railroads, literally. And of course they would hire like the only architects out there to design their rail stations. And so this one, it was a very beautiful one designed by Cass Gilbert, the same architect of the Woolworth building. And my dad would see this station as they would go past it. And he was just like, "I think I'd like to live in that neighborhood." Literally. He won $15,000 in a horse race. And keep in mind, this is the late 1930s, early 40s. And he was like, he won $15,000. He did not want to put money in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But he didn't want to put money in a bank. And was just like, and he literally carried it home because he was in California when he got his winnings, and carried it back home in cash. and then went to up into that same neighborhood where the station was located, and found an Italian family who was willing to directly negotiate the sale, which he did. So he's one of the
Wow.
first Black men in this neighborhood. And he married my mom, and I'm the youngest of their kids, and so because of that station. But that station actually never reopened, as a train station, and it was turned into mini storefronts. And then after the owner of the ground lease died, that's when Amtrak, who actually owned the building, they eventually, all the other storefront owners left. And it just sat there looking like trash. Raccoons got in it. It was just, but it literally was at the gateway to our community. And I also knew that our neighborhood at some point was going to get regional rail service here. And so I thought that building needs to be something amazing right now. And so we acquired it for $1. And we initially tried to find a partner. And speaking, this just goes back to the same, like the cafe story. It's like, I didn't feel qualified, quite frankly, to do something with this, but I knew that that it needed to be something wonderful that would be a destination to attract people, and wanted to do something like or find a partner to do something like a food hall for local chefs, because we've got a ton of Bronx culinary talent, but none of it stays. None of it stays. And they're all over the country and the world and the city, et cetera. And so like no one I spoke to thought that was a possibility in the neighborhood right now. And they weren't wrong. But then my husband and I realized, well, maybe what we should do is just do something that we know there's a need of. We did the market analysis for event venues. And so we set up about doing the interior demolition ourselves, and setting it up to be an event hall called Bronxlandia. And so we're still looking for the financing to get that thing done. So a couple million. So if anybody's out there, want to be an equity partner in this thing, we'd be delighted to have you. And but the second part is that what it did do was basically cement our relationship with Amtrak, who owns an enormous amount of land all over the country, all right next to their railroad tracks.
Wow.
And so we thought, this could be super interesting.
Yeah.
You can partner with them, and then as an LP or GP, however they want, and then also partner with the other property owners, right? Literally abuts that. You can create an assemblage for brand land. And so our plan right now, so we've already obtained an option for 40% of the land in these basically like 7 blocks, in this community, right? Literally right on either side of the rail station, which is also right next door to where Metro North, which is our region's regional rail, is coming to this area. And we thought this is the area for transit-oriented development. So we have a 40% option on all that land. And our plan, and now we're going to be working to acquire the rest of the properties, or to put them under some kind of contract or include them in the deal, so that we can do a major mixed use and mixed income housing and commercial light industrial development.
That is amazing. And it sounds so exciting. That is like the vision of someone who's like an economic development professional. I'm just like,
I know.
That's what I would love to do. It's so awesome. Wow.
And what's so beautiful is that it's also the kind of vision of just regular people who know things could be.
Yeah.
And that's what's so exciting to me. It's just like, believe me, I love my hood, but I swear my hood in this city, we have unfortunately been victim to be, we're often considered like the land of low expectations. And there's kind of like, that can't possibly happen. Just even if you just think of New York City, if anybody knows anything about this place, all the places that were written off, for parts of Brooklyn, definitely Harlem, Soho, which was just like nobody wanted to be in Soho. And now these are places that are completely, like, totally unaffordable. And I'm just like, if by chance there had been a very critical and targeted, strategy to create an opportunity for mixed income, mixed use developments that actually had the kind of economic diversity that could support a lot of different things, it could happen. But we don't see that happening very often. When my dream, is that frankly, this partnership that we're in with Amtrak goes well beyond the Bronx. And I'm not trying to be part of it at all. I mean, because I'm old and I'm just want to do well with this one project and then I'll be set and I can retire.
Right.
To be quite honest, like I'm done. But again, Amtrak is open to being, a joint venture partner in all of these kind of deals that often run right through neighborhoods just like this one.
Right.
And how
Yeah.
beautiful would it be if this inspires, other folks, frankly, developers that look like me to be a part of that kind of deal. And that's what's exciting to me that, that my
Your historic story. Yeah.
lead others to
Yeah.
know that what's possible.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's so awesome. I see it happening. I just reminds me of the Beltline in Atlanta and many developments abroad. You're right. I've seen it in many places. So I think hopefully this platform will get some new ears, some
Mhm.
new eyes on it. And so that's great. But one thing that you keyed on was the mindset. And so I want to ask you, what is your mindset hack? So how do you flip the switch, make it different? Your mindset hack.
Oh, I don't know if there, because believe me, there are moments. I had one this morning where I was like, why am I doing this? Like, seriously, there is no love or support for for women. I was like, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I don't have a rich uncle in the business. Like, if I had $5 million for a guarantee, I wouldn't be asking you for investment. Leave me alone. Like, seriously, like, how could we possibly do this? But I think the thing that keeps me going is knowing that this kind of stuff needs to be done, and that I feel like God did not bring me this far just to bring me this far, 'cause that would be really mean. and and look, patience is, the roots of that word is actually strength. And I've never had a problem with like delayed gratification. I can and this makes me enjoy it all the more. And but yeah, I see the future and I know it's out there and it's just waiting. And then after that, then I will have my houseboat and set up on like I probably won't even take it out very often.
Right.
But
But just to be on the water.
yes, that's what I'll do for a
I love
while.
it. I love it. This has been such a great conversation about the work, but we always like to get to know who you are when you're not working. So I ask if you're a reader, a watcher, a listener, and what are some of your favorite reads, watches, or listens, or what else do you do in your off the clock time?
Well, I am terrible at like I'm really trying hard to be like I am more than my work. And to be honest, I love my work. Like I do. I enjoy it very, very much, although it does drive me crazy because it's the stupid parts that I still have to do that make me go like that's what like saps me. But what I'm trying to do, I actually joined a book club and actually that's at my cafe, which is super fun. I just, and I don't know if all book clubs work this way, but the two young men that lead it are just brilliant. And so they do this whole lesson. So whether or not you read the book, you still feel like, oh my gosh, I've learned so much. And so the just yesterday's book club was all the Shah's men, and it was about like everything that led up to the current Iran situation, just it was brilliant. And I'm just like, we up here doing this outside in the South Bronx. I'm like, don't be telling me my people don't have tons to offer this world. And I'm also trying to get back into just sewing. I'm from a long line of women who worked in the rag trade from my mom and on my dad's side, my aunts. And I was actually very good at it, but I haven't done a whole lot of it in a while. And I love just like and that is just like building something out of nothing. Like you but got a bolt of fabric with it. It's just really super lovely. And painting, another thing that I've not spent a lot of time doing before. And yeah, I've been trying to write again too.
Okay. Okay. So is this fiction, nonfiction? Where are you
It's
landing in
definitely fiction. Yeah, fiction. So I have a writing partner and we did actually sell a screenplay, or rather, excuse me, a television pilot to Showtime back in the day, and it was essentially about, it was a really juicy soap opera-y kind of dramatic retelling of real estate development in New York City. And it was like, had like all that good stuff. It was amazing. And it will be done at some point. And so I'm reworking it as we speak right now. And hopefully
Ooh,
see it in the
yeah.
next couple of years. And that'll be my Emmy.
Yeah, there you go. The awards, the awards. So
I'm
one
like, yes,
award.
I want an Emmy. I do. 100% do. There, I just put it out to the universe.
There
So
you
there you
go.
go.
There you go.
Mhm.
One award or sort of certification or certificate that you had, New York Police.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. Yes. So I am a graduate of the New York City Citizens Police Academy.
Okay. Okay.
And I did that in part because we were honestly having a really hard time. I've actually been blessed with having a local police department that I've actually worked with very closely for years. And I feel like we were actually partners on a bunch of things. We had one cop who I swear honestly made me think of the roots of police in this country, which was basically they were slave catchers. And this man, I could not, I mean, he spent more time antagonizing us than you could possibly imagine. And it was really scary for some time. Like I wasn't being like attacked, but I was being attacked and totally bullied. And it was bad. And so honestly, I took the class in part just to be like, look, you don't have a problem with me. I would actually like to see more of what happens here. But it really was a really interesting class. So yes, I think it was 2024 when I got my degree after I got out of the Citizens Police Academy. And it was a really useful thing. I think that we actually more people need to see what it is like, what is, because I learned a lot more. I mean, believe me, I did it honestly just sort of like a CYA, to be honest, like just in case, because people don't do that unless they're like, don't have any issues, with, it's not like I was going out of my way to say like everything you do is perfect, because I would not ever say that either. But I did appreciate, we'd actually partnered on a lot of stuff. And I think that they've done a pretty decent job. Again, my local precinct, I'm not going to speak for everybody else's.
Right. But that's strategy, and it makes
Yeah.
sense in the world that we live in. So as we come to a close, this has been so much fun. I've had a great time connecting with
I
you.
know.
And I look forward to what's next and what's new and what's now. And when I'm back in New York, I'm gonna make a
Yes.
special trip to the Bronx to just see
Yes.
what's going on. So
You have to.
yes, indeed.
I love it.
Indeed.
Awesome.
So before we sign off for today, do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners? Our listeners and watchers, yeah.
I'm just so delighted that I could reconnect with you, because you were actually one of the people when I started thinking about like, is this possible? Like, even though like I didn't realize that you were the same person until I saw you, I was like, wait, that is you. It was your early interest and understanding of what I was trying to do that really made me feel like, okay, I can do this. And seeing, a woman looks like me, in this work was something that made me go, okay, yes, this is possible. So thank you for being that inspiration. Not just me,
Thank
so
you.
many others that are out there. And I'm just grateful that your podcast exists. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Glocal citizens, this has been another episode of the podcast. You can catch us Tuesdays with new episodes at glocalcitizenspod.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like, share, subscribe, leave us a review. Check out the show notes because they're always rich, and you can find links to all these great projects, all this great information. And until next time, bye for now.